Welcome back, everyone, to the People Talking from a Social Distance podcast. Today, I have a very, very special guest, one of the first people that I had a chance to work with here at SHS, and someone whose outlook, style, and skill as a teacher has definitely left an indelible mark on my teaching. One of my favorite people in the building, and a spectacular colleague. We've got Barb White today.
Thanks, Greg. Awesome introduction. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm doing what I can. I can't stress that enough. And I know we've talked about it before, but you are definitely someone whose thoughts on like teaching, I'm always super excited to hear. When I get bummed out by like a lot of the negativity in the building, I know I can always come to your room and you can be like, well, what if you think about it this way? And then I go, you're right. Dang it.
You must have caught me on all my good days of all my teaching, so that's good.
There you go. So we're gonna have a little conversation. Again, I'm happy you're here, being socially distant with me. We're gonna go through some different questions, talk about some different things. And again, I want to thank you for taking your time out and doing this and helping us to sort of continue to have a community even while we're all in exile. So the first question I have for you is, if you had to pick another term or another label outside of teacher to describe yourself, what would it be and why?
This is a great question. I was thinking about this, and I think that the thing about being a teacher is it describes what you do, but it doesn't necessarily describe who you are. And so I think in general, if I picked a word to describe myself, it would probably be advocate or challenger. And sometimes those things work out great for me and sometimes they don't, but I think they get encompassed in the profession of teaching. And so I'm someone who is really, really bothered by injustice. I'm someone who hates it when the underdog isn't getting what they need. And I am someone who doesn't like it when people are unprotected and can't get the stuff they need. So I think that's probably part of the reason why I went into education, is because I think as a teacher, there's all those things you get to do, but I think those other words probably describe me better. And I am intrigued by good conversation. I'm energized by discourse and discussion. And when there's conflict that can actually be solved and move forward, then that's something that also is really part of who I am. So I would say that probably is some words that describe me. And then as a result of that, what I do is teach, but who I am is advocate or challenge systems that don't work.
I like both those a lot. And I think that's something I've noticed with a lot of the responses to this first question is, and I don't know that it's the same in other professions, but like teaching is so, like the things that bring us to teaching might be different, but we all come to that same conclusion of like teaching is the avenue through which we can affect this change and do these things.
Yeah,
I love, one of my favorite quotes about teaching, and I'm sure you would appreciate this as well, is from Dr. William Ayers. That's, teaching is an act of opposition to the given world, right? Yeah. We see something in the world that we're like, ugh, and we do the best we can through teaching to try to change those things.
Yeah, and I think I still tell my students that I unashamedly think that they are the future, and so it's really important to me that they just learn to think and interact and be good humans way beyond whatever content they learn, because I do think they're going to change the world. So I think that's part of why education has been part of my story,
And again, if people didn't believe me when I said before that your outlook is something that's invigorating, see, that's just I hope to be as uplifted by my experience in education throughout my career as you often are when we talk.
Oh, thanks, Greg.
So I think this kind of plays into our second question, but maybe there's another direction you want to take it, which is, what's something else outside of teaching that you're passionate about? Can you tell us any stories about it, or where that passion sort of came from?
Yeah. I don't want this to sound cliche, but I'm pretty passionate about people just really feeling like they are finding kind of success, or they're finding where they fit in the story that they're living. And so I think two things that I'm passionate about. One is travel, and this season has certainly shut that down, but I'm someone who's really had the privilege to travel on multiple continents, and mostly traveling to places where I've gotten to serve with underserved communities in Africa or Haiti or other places like that. I've had opportunity to be in Venezuela before it became such a dark place. And so I think that is something, people fascinate me, their stories fascinate me. and I'm interested in that. So kind of as a result of my interest in people and my, I guess I'm really inquisitive. I tend to ask people a lot of questions. About a year ago, someone encouraged me to put those two things together and pursue some other certifications. And so actually I've moved into some certification through coaching. And so started working with clients and coaching people in groups or in their personal lives, and by asking questions and having people move forward and things. And that's something I've loved, and it's been a great nexus for where I'm at in life, with passion for questions, passion for people, letting people kind of get to see what they want to do. And so I think some of that's come from my ability to be able to travel and see people around the world. So I don't know if that all makes sense, but it's kind of the meshing of the two here in my early 50s.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I think it's, again, a lot of the conversations that we've had on this podcast revolve around like being able to still find fulfillment in this very dark and different time. And so being able to sort of take some of those things that you know you're passionate about and you can clearly articulate and use those outside of even just the school building. That's awesome. It's great.
Yep.
All right. Next question we have for you. What's something that we wouldn't believe if you told us? What's maybe something that you would say, like, you would have to work to get us to believe you if you told us about yourself or about your experiences?
Okay, so I just want to make sure this is for our colleagues, right? This isn't going elsewhere.
100%.
All right. I think that people who get to know me now as an adult would find it exceptionally hard to believe that I was a really obnoxious, rebellious teenager, and I was the kind of student that many of us don't appreciate. I caused a lot of problems with my high school. My first run-in with the law, I lied about my name and gave the name of a classmate I hated. I did a lot. I was involved in lots of things, you imagine it, I was probably doing it. And not to say that I'm not proud of that. I was a pretty reckless and unhappy teenager. So you probably wouldn't believe that about me. You wouldn't believe that by the time I was 18, my senior year, my mom was planning on moving away. I refused to move with her, and she said, find a place to live. I went and lived with some friends. And then when I graduated, I got my own apartment before I went to college, and all that happened before I was 18. And I think that's part of and I had some teachers that in high school who saw how reckless and probably unhealthy I was, and they kind of rallied on my behalf, but I don't think I saw all that until I was much older, trying to find me places to live and things like that. And so I think people who see me, I've been married for 30 years, I've got 2 kids, I have a stable job and a sense of family and community, would not know that was the case with me. And so I was that kid. I was the kid who was, breaking the law and finding trouble and drinking and doing drugs and causing problems and picking fights and yelling at people and pretty much had lost my way. And so I think when I tell people that, they often say, I can't believe that was you. And so that was me.
Well, and I think that plays directly into your desire to help and advocate and bring others to a better place, right? Like, you can pick out from experiences, be like, don't do that. And coming from the area that I came from and the issues surrounding Will County in my youth, I think there's something to that. The experiences we have dictate a lot of how we end up sort of directing our energies later on in life. I mean, I've known you for a while, so that I was like, yeah, no, that tracks. Like, no, I'm Barb, but that's great. That's great. We're gonna go in a slightly different order here. Because I think we're sort of skirting around that idea of the actual like task of teaching and what that's all about. So I think that's the next place I'd like to go. If there was one thing you wish you could change about teaching, like the actual nuts and bolts of teaching itself, the task at hand, what would you like to change and why?
Well, I think in this season, there's the short answer to that is I feel like in this season, the actual art of teaching has become very much the science of teaching. So I think that has been challenging. But I think the big picture is that I would love to reimagine or redefine learning in a way that is not so linked to standardized tests and grades and check marks and all those different kinds of things that we measure. And so I think there's great value in looking at the end, like the end goal, and then planning something backwards. And I think there's some definite value in that. However, I would love to see learning be something that kids don't feel like they have to do, but it's something they just lose themselves in as they get to explore and do things. And I really wish that our system, which is so exceptionally archaic, and Greg, you and I have talked about this, something that's still operating on the industrial revolution era. I would love to see that blown up and changed. And ironically, I think that could happen right now in the midst of COVID. I think that because institutions like education take forever to change, it's like turning a big ship. We know it takes decades and decades, but it also, sometimes you got to sink it and resurrect it. And so part of me feels like, let's just take the opportunity of COVID and call it what it is. Let's scratch what we've done and let's just start over and decide what we want to see from kids in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And let's just begin again and stop trying to pretend like some of the academic benchmarks aren't just a money game, by the people who want to make money at different levels and aren't trying to just measure a kid's success. And I think that because I've taught for decades, I have seen a huge decline in students' self-esteem and a huge rise in their anxiety, and a lot of how they do is who they are is attached to what they do, which is not true, but culture has presented that to them. So if there was a way I could just blow it up and start over, which I would just do that. And sometimes I feel like even in Sycamore right now, like there's things that maybe we could do. We could do this, or we could do that. But then sometimes I think, well, what do we want to do? Let's just do it and be awesome at it. And it doesn't have to look like anything other than what's awesome for our kids. Like what do we have to lose? So those are the kind of things that I would love to see happen. And I know that's there's a lot that would have to occur, but I think if we're all honest, this isn't really working awesome anyway. And so we may as well try something else instead of to have it keep going the way it's going. So I don't know if that was too vague, but that's what I would do.
No, that obviously ties in the other part of challenger of systems, right? Yeah. Bringing that to the forefront.
Yeah, right. Yep. Get rid of
it. I've remarked, and I know I've probably said it to you as well, that it would be great if education could change without a catastrophe necessitating it, right?
I know, but what if the opposite happened? The catastrophe started, and education becomes not the savior, but becomes the good guy, instead of the opposite. Yeah, it's such a mess. It is a mess. And I'm sorry. One other thing I'd say is I think it's ridiculous the way we fund education, and that's so archaic as well. It doesn't make any sense. And if we could somehow convince the pro athletes and the celebrities, the people who make billions of dollars, just if they would give 1% of their income back to education, we wouldn't have to fund it with property taxes. Like, that seems ridiculous to me in this day and age. Someone should be able to fix that. You can get a man on the moon or a couple men on the moon. You can do whatever you want. You can't figure out how to fund education. Figure it out, people. Like, I don't think it's got to be that hard to do something different. So again, no one asked me except for you, so I'm telling you. So.
No problem. Last one for you, and again, I appreciate your time, taking time out to be socially distant and to talk. If you would care to share a funniest and or worst teaching moment, and then also, how do you feel about that moment now?
Okay. I'm going to share, I'll share two of them really quick. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally fine.
I don't know about that one, Greg. I know which one you're thinking of. You think I should share? You think I should share that one? He's laughing. Okay, don't judge me. People, don't judge me. I was young and trying to get students engaged. Okay, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful at all. So here's my first one, and I was very young. I was getting ready to teach something in my American Lit class, and I was trying to kind of get kind of some reaction out of the students, and I made the very awful poor choice, 100% regret choice that I've told very few people. So consider yourselves lucky. I was like, what would happen? I'm telling the class these things. If I decided that I was going to stand on the American flag, and then what happens with that? I was trying to get some discussion going. That was a really bad idea. I got in so much trouble from, well, the students were furious. My department chair, who wasn't rich, was notified. I went and had to talk to the principal. It was a big mess because that was me just trying to, get some good discussion going, trying to, challenge the system. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but I feel awful about that. I can't even believe I told you about it because it was an awful, horrible mistake. So that was the worst. That was my worst teaching moment. My most interesting, though, I'm going to tell you this, or I'm going to tell you, here's one that I hope never happens again. I did have a student one year in a journal admit to being part of a murder and lying about it in court. And he had already gone to jail and had been released from prison, so he could not be punished for that crime twice that he had lied about. So that's also a true story. And there's so much with that I can even tell you. It actually goes back to when Sycamore was really fighting a huge gang problem, which you also probably don't believe was the case, but it was. And we had an assistant principal at the time who took us outside as part of our PD one day on an in-service and showed us all the graffiti on one of the sheds out back that doesn't exist anymore, and walked us through all of the gangs that were in DeKalb and Sycamore and gave us a little lesson on how we could learn about the Latin Kings, the gangster disciples, and that was a little fun too. So there's 3 stories for you that you get to know about. So feel free to find me on any of those. And I can tell you more maybe if I feel like it. So.
Wow. Yeah, gave me some Joliet flashbacks there with some of the gang warfare stuff. Yowza.
Yep.
I mean, I don't even know if I can add anything to this conversation that's gonna change it from that direction. No, it's totally fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I gave you a lot there. That's probably more. In fact, I'm probably gonna regret all that. So people, don't judge me. Just give me some grace.
Well, again, I want to thank you for being here and taking some time out. Again, everything I said in the intro, I definitely meant, and I appreciate everything you do for our community, for our building, for our students. I'm super glad to get to work with you, and I'm glad we got to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Thanks for taking the initiative and putting this together. I know it's really helpful and beneficial, and just really builds on your talents too. So thanks for taking time to chat with me. I appreciate it.